Folks, I don't really get a chance to vent a lot, but I'm telling you honestly, I don't know how to put this. With every retail job or any job in question, there's always going to be a time where you pretty much question whether or not somebody doesn't know how to schedule right. And if they do, why in the world would they schedule in such a way that, excuse my language, God, is asinine? With all due respect to those people that are in charge of putting together people's work schedules, what is the point of putting together a schedule if you know for certain that a certain day or a certain amount of days or a certain time of the month is going to be one of your busiest times of the month, and you need all the help you can get? A couple weeks ago, my oldest sister, told me and my mom that my nephew, who plays Little League, had this thing that the Little Leaguers go to every year in Oakland. They basically walk the field, they attend the game, and they get acknowledged. Well, this year, my sister, who's also the coach of my nephew's team, tells us about this. And I'm thinking, okay, I could switch with somebody. I'm thinking, okay, I could switch with somebody. I can use my PTO, what have you. I could do all that. Unfortunately, that's not the case. Unfortunately, that's not the case due to the fact okay, that it's the first of the month. And my job, according to several managers, several higher ups, if you will, need coverage. Okay. If you need coverage, then let me ask you this. On this day, when you say you need the coverage, where the hell was it? I mean, true, maybe I got a few hours of sleep here and there. Believe it or not, a lot of people at my job are the same way at times. They'll get off, they'll try to get to bed at a decent time, but they'll only be able to get a few hours sleep. Why? Because either they get off late and they have to come back and open, or they got to be there in the early morning hours, mid-morning that is, or after they get off early, which could be like 1:30 or 2:30, they go out with family, see a movie, probably have a good time, and then it's hard for them to go back to bed, or hard for them to go to sleep when they get home because they're still full of energy. They're still full of energy. So my my question is if you're looking for coverage, if you need coverage, what was it? And like I said, I may have had a few hours of sleep, but I can tell you this: I'm friends with I am friends with some of my associates, managers, if you will, that a few times have told me they've only had a few hours of sleep too, but they still get through the day like I did, thanks to the Lord above. But my question is, when you tell somebody who you schedule for that day, oh, I can't let you switch with someone. I can't let you use your PTO because I need the coverage. Here's the question. Where's that coverage? Where was it? I didn't see it. Did you? I mean, it'd be like, and I've experienced this in the past too from personal experience. I've dealt with this too. It'd be like working at a fast food place. You know you're going to be busy on certain days. You know certain moments, certain days or events are going to happen. You're going to be busy, and yet you don't have, and yet you say you need coverage. Where's the coverage? There's none. There have been several times when I worked for Burger King for 4.5 years. We would have days, either when KU would be playing a big home basketball game or a big home football game, and we would get slaughtered, all because we didn't have the coverage. All because the people in charge sometimes to do the schedules decided to schedule less people than what they needed. And this is something that's not just related to where I work. It's not just related to where I used to work. It's related to any job out there. It is. And the fact of the matter is, this needs to be fixed. This is a system, like, a lot of people complain how the DMCA system, the copyright system on YouTube is broken. This kind of a system where you need coverage for certain days at your jobs, either a fast food, retail, supermarket, doesn't matter. Warehouse doesn't matter. Online doesn't matter. You need to make sure you have that coverage. I understand. I get, some people. I get some people, don't want to do it. I get some people only want to be at a job to get paid. They don't really want to do much. All they want to do is just stand around and talk, if they will, before the assistant manager gets on them. And believe me, I've been in that position. I've been in a position where my assistant manager or my CSMs or the people in charge of me, the people I answer to, have gotten on me and others for talking to each other and wasting time. And yet my job is not the only one that does it. There are a lot of retail jobs, fast food jobs, like I've said, many different genres of jobs, different types of jobs and employment out there, where people, all they want to do is just get hired so they can stand around, talk, and get paid. Yeah, they have a job to do, but then instead of keeping themselves busy, like either zoning or doing this or that, all they want to do is go like, oh yeah, so I told this one person the other day that knowing that they could get caught. And all the mentality is, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to get paid anyway. And that's true. And yes, I will admit, sometimes you don't always have an alternative. Sometimes you don't have anything to zone. And you just need to stand there and look pretty. And maybe the only occupation you have is to talk to somebody and have a discussion, a water cooler discussion, if you will. But here's the question. Is it really the associate's fault that they do that? No. Well, technically, yes. But on the other hand, it shouldn't be. Because when one thinks about it, you're supposed to have something for them doing all the time. Yet you don't want them leaving the Pacific areas because you never know when you're going to get hit. That's where coverage is needed, right? And again, I emphasize, today at my job, where was it? Where was that damn coverage? It was nowhere. And when they would call people up, people would not show sometimes. And when people would leave the registers to go to the breaks, we would be hit. Look, I'm not saying I'm innocent, okay? There were several times I went to lunch and I went to break and we got slaughtered. And I got talked to about it. But nowadays, myself and probably several others have wised up and realized, you know what? If we try to go to lunch or ask about going to lunch or try to ask about going to break, we're going to get denied because we're getting slaughtered right now. But yet there are those that still do that because They don't want to deal with the rush. They don't want to deal with having to wait another 30 minutes or another hour just to go have a 15-minute break, or another 30 minutes or hour to want to go to lunch. I mean, look, I'm not saying that I get impatient either. I do. But I deal with it. Heck, I was going to go to lunch at my appropriate time, and then all of a sudden we get rushed, and I'm like, damn, what the hell's going on? Where's the people? Where's our coverage? And apparently, it might all coincide with a few things. Like I mentioned earlier, my sister had this little league thing that her son, my nephew, went to for all little leaguers at the Oakland A's Astros game. That might have been part of it. That might have contributed to it. But on the other hand, we also had an event here in town that's for a good cause. And that's the Relay for Life at the Patterson High School track. Okay, those I can understand. But even with that, where the hell's the coverage? Are you seriously going to ask for the first off, knowing that's probably one of the busiest days of the year? Or busiest days of the month, I should say? Are you really going to do that? Because if I was running a store, if I was running a company, retail, supermarket, whatever, and I knew the first and the third were the two biggest days of every month, and the two of the busiest days of every month, I would put a hold on those days. Just like companies put a hold on anybody trying to go on vacation or trying to ask for days off in December and November because of the holiday season, I would put a hold similar to that on those first few days of every month, so that those people can understand that they are needed at these jobs. And yet, because this is not the holiday season, they're still given that time off that they request. But you know what's funny is, I requested a day off or so similar to today not that long ago at the same amount of time that I did, and I got it. But this time I couldn't. It just shows you how broken a system is. Because if you know you're going to get hit on these days, you need to make sure you have plenty of coverage, no matter what the problem, no matter what people think, or no matter what people think, no matter what they say. You got to make sure they know, hey, you need to be here. I was contemplating doing a sick day deal today so I could go to the baseball game with my family, but I didn't. I didn't do it because, you know what? In the end, I realized there are other games, just like my family told me, but I also realized that my job's going to get smart enough, and they're going to get smartened up to what I did, and they're going to realize you're not really sick. You just wanted to go to something you just wanted to go to that family event, that game that was scheduled the same day. And sometimes they always wonder why people call in sick, and yet they were fine the previous day. I'll tell you why they call in sick. Because they're not really sick. They're hungover. Like I said, they're hungover. They go out and they party, and then they get hungover to the point that they're not capable of coming into work. Even though they know they got to be there early, or they got to be there at a certain moment in the day. This is why sometimes if I have enough advance notice to give them, I always request certain days in a row off. Like with the Apricot Fiesta, 4th of July, which I still got to do. I ask for those times off because I know for a matter of fact that I'm going to be with my family and I'm going to get buzzed and I'm going to be probably drunk, maybe off my ass, maybe not, but I'm not going to be in a good mood to come into work the next day. So I'm going to be wise and take that time to get myself better. But yet, there are certain situations, like what I've mentioned, that happen right off the fly. And sometimes people call in sick and they're not really sick. They're not even hungover. They just don't want to come in. Or like me, they want to go to an event, but they know they've been denied, but they're still going to go. To me, this all goes back to what I said before. The system, as far as jobs are concerned, is broken. It is broken. It needs to be fixed. And here are several ways they could do it. Here are several ways. Again, this is how it needs to be fixed. Several ways it can be fixed. One, they need to do focus groups. They need to do research. You do focus groups and you use these focus groups to research exactly when your busiest times of the day are going to be, so that if you do have a lunch schedule for some people, you at least let them know, no, we can't. You let them know as soon as they get there. You take them to the side and say, look, this is one of our busiest days every month. So if your lunch is scheduled when, you may have to wait an additional 30 minutes or an hour, understand? And if you tell them that right off the bat, and as well as acknowledge, hey, you may have to do the same thing as far as your breaks go, your 15-minute or 10-minute breaks or what have you. If you let them know right off the bat, then they'll pretty much be like, okay, fine, we understand. We're not going to, basically you'll at least let them know not to expect to go to lunch or breaks when they expect to or when they're scheduled to. They have to wait. Another thing is make sure. Another thing with these focus groups, these research, is not just learn what are the busiest hours of each day for each month that you have. Not only learn about what could be the busiest days of each month, period, but also use these focus groups to research how much coverage you're going to need for those days. Figure out what are your busiest days and what are not your busiest days. Because if you schedule a lot of people on a day that's not so busy and you don't really have much for them to do, you might as well just let them go home if you have that option for them. Okay? I was surprised we had a certain code, if you will, that allowed us to do that because they needed to save on hours. And to me, they need to go back to that. Companies need to go back to that code or whatever they use to save hours by reducing hours or letting people go home early. Because not only will you be saving hours and saving time, but it'll help you in the long run, because then you'll start to realize and learn that during the regular non-holiday seasons and non-holiday months, what are your busiest and non-busiest days, and how much coverage you need for each day. And if you know the first and the third, because a lot of people get their money from Social Security, are two of the biggest days, two of the busiest days of the year, then you need to work on that. You need to make sure that those 2 days are covered. And it doesn't matter if they're the weekend or they're not. But even with that exception, with the exception of holidays like Memorial Day and 4th of July, Mother's Day, Father's Day, graduations, with those exceptions, Cinco de Mayo, you name it. With those exceptions aside, use these focus groups to research what days are the busiest and what days are not the busiest. So you know that on your busiest days, what kind of coverage you need. So that you'll know on your non-busiest days what kind of coverage you need. I mean, go into basically start these groups. Meet with people, meet with associates, employees, employers. Meet with your regional team, your regional managers, your state managers, whatever, your corporate managers. Get something done so that in the long run it will be beneficial for you, your company, your store that your company, the store that represents your company, and those that work at that store. Because in the long run, not only would it be beneficial for you and everybody else all around, but it'll basically make things work out better. I mean, if you could focus on a group, let's take Wednesdays, for example. Wednesdays are the middle of the week, and sometimes they're not always the busiest. Wednesdays and Thursdays, unless they're the third. The first or the third, I should say. Unless they're one of those. Unless they're one of those days. But the truth is, in the end, it would be beneficial for everybody. I mean, you'll be able to balance out what are your busiest days and how much, but like I said, doing research with focus groups, using focus groups to do the research and learn what are your busiest days and what are your not your busiest days, and what kind of coverage you need each of those days. It's going to be beneficial in the long run. And if you're a company that has a code that allows people to give up those hours that helps in the long run to help save hours, then you should implement that code a lot more. If you're a company that decides, hey, we're not that busy, we got so many people, let's let some of the early ones go home early, then so be it. Bring that in. Let that happen. In the long run, it'll be beneficial to the company in general, to the company, the store, and everybody associated with it. And you won't have BS like I had today. You won't have days like I've had over the past few days that will nearly drive you crazy. I mean, one of the things that will drive anybody insane as well is not the fact that things like a scheduling system being broken. It's customers not knowing when somebody is getting ready to go on break or getting ready to go home or getting ready to go to lunch. I mean, you can have your light off and people will still come. Why? Because they're conditioned, and I'm getting sick and tired of it. And I know I'm not the only one at my job that's getting sick and tired of it. And I know people at other retail jobs, supermarkets, supercenters, whatever you, malls, that are sick and tired of this. And they want these customers to understand this is not your small town mom and pop place, okay? Well, all you have to do is see other people in line, and oh, I'm going to go in there and I'm going to go in line, and get checked out. You're not going to do that. You can't. You got to learn that when a light is off, no matter what the business, and it's at a register or it's in a part of that store or whatever, and the lights are off, they're done. They're closed. That person's gone to lunch. That person's going to lunch. That person's going to break. That person's going home. Yet, but yet you don't think that. You don't think that way. That's the point. You don't think that way because you don't want to think that way. You don't think that way because you're conditioned to think another way. And that's bad. One of these days, I mean, why do you think people get upset? They get upset at the fact that when they see somebody turn the light off, and someone like myself has to say, oh, don't worry, you're the last people I have. And yet, those other people that come after them saying, are you closed or this? Yeah, I'm closed. But yet, thanks to broken scheduling systems, it gets contradicted. Or contradicted, because then people like myself have to go back to our registers, open them back up, and have people come. And then the customers get upset because they're confused. They don't know if we're open. They don't know if we're closed. And the thing is, they need to start respecting that. Another thing they need to start respecting is the fact that a lot of retail jobs, whether it's where I work, whether it's at a Target, a Kmart, a Costco, a Lucky's, an Albertson, a Save Mart, they're always going to have people checking receipts when you leave the door or when you leave the store. You know why? Because if it wasn't for people stealing, if it wasn't for young punks stealing, we wouldn't have to go through this. You know, they complain now that my job is locked up the liquor. We finally put a freaking liquor cabinet in the alcohol aisle. Well, basically now, just like when somebody goes and buys an ammo or goes and buys a gun, they have to unlock the key or goes and buys, an expensive perfume or a certain special perfume or cologne that's locked up. Or a certain piece of jewelry that's locked up. They have to get keys for it. Well, you know what? Again, this wouldn't have to happen. This wouldn't have to happen if nobody stole. There's no young kids, alcoholics, druggies didn't steal. And now the same's with the video games. You think we have keys? We have glass cages on the games themselves. The ones that are new or semi-new or whatever. But now we have glass cages on some of the major accessories. And why? Because kids don't know how to respect. They don't know how to respect, and they do whatever it takes to get what they want. There have been several times where myself and the people in electronics have noticed certain things missing. And they had the magnet locks, and they're displayed on those magnet hook locks that can only be unlocked by a magnet key. And yet some things get stolen, some things go missing. And why? Because kids, punks, they have no respect. And they don't want to go out and get a job and earn it. And you wonder why a lot of things are being caged up now? Because if people had any respect, they would think, oh, I want that bottle of Fireball to drink tonight to get relaxed. I want it so bad, but I can't steal it. I have to buy it. Maybe I'm not meant to get it right now because financially I don't have the money. Same with a kid. Same with a kid. It's stealing the accessories for a PS4 or an Xbox One. You want it? Earn it. Get a job, earn the money. The thing is, you want to complain? They want to complain and everything about that? Look in the mirror. There's your answer. And you want to complain as to, you want to have an attitude, you want to complain, oh, well, you can't, why should I show you my receipt? I have not done that. Oh, what, you think we stole something? I did it. We're only doing our jobs. The people that wear those yellow vests are only doing their jobs. The people that substitute for them are only doing their jobs. And the thing is, you people will have to respect that. You have to respect the fact that we're doing our job. We're not there to accuse, we're doing our job. We're protecting you from a potential theft. And we're making sure that anything you've purchased is on there so that you don't look like a thief. Overall, folks, this is just something I had to get off my chest. Because I think once in a while we need to vent. And we need to let the world see our vent trip. And we need to let the world see our ventation, if you catch my drift. So let me know what you guys think about my venting here. Comment below. Talk to y'all later.